The sad fact is that most times when people are in duress, our family members don't even see us for where we're at and are completely unaware of the kind of situations that we're in. And if you think about it, truly think about the subject matter, you will come to the exact same conclusion as I am. We're being led astray from truth, my friends. We're being so far led away from the truth. Our families and eventually our whole lives that we could otherwise be living can't even be seen for what they could have been. Instead, if it wasn't for this kind of robbery going on with other people's dignity and their lives, or their financial lives, their abilities to thrive, or wherever that targeting and hack can misalign a person. It's a criminal and immoral thing taking place in this country, and we as human beings are not even being protected in reality. As though they sell you on this fabrication that tells you that you don't have to worry about this or that kind of thing happening to you, when you have a system that's here to protect you. But then when it's already happening, and people are being dumbed down and so duped to even be able to see it, it's a willful blindness, I think, that goes into that willful ignorance even as well on these kinds of topics. And so if you think I'm just trying to pull anyone's leg out here as to what's really going on in the world and what people need to wake up to, they need to take a look at the long facts that I'm bringing forth to the table. But most people aren't looking at anything. They think that, two people looking at at some of your content is good enough, when it's like a piece of the pie that's important to understand what content I'm bringing out. And so people that pretend that they can understand it before even looking at the impacts that it takes upon a person, when it's this long stream events that are actually taking place that implant the human into the condition of their suffering through whatever means has been necessary to break us and shape us and mold us in whatever way that they wanted to. A lot of people I run into are the same type of people that will tell you that they know what's going on and that it's happening, but they don't want to take any part in it, or any part in exposing it. And that's a thing called being a coward. And being a coward about real topics that should matter to you is a straight up admittance to yourself, like, oh, I realized that I could go right, but I'm just gonna choose wrong. Well, that's straight up being a dickhead, bad person right out the gate. When we are allowed to leave people in this kind of duress due to things they've been going through, and end up getting our children in worse predicaments, and the generations to come in worse predicaments. So I feel bad for you if you don't want to speak up about these kinds of real issues, because people really have no idea what the future will look like if we're going to allow this kind of slavery to be able to continue uprooting the human spirit and into that cold and dead husk. Just put all your dreams in the desk, put them all up on the shelf, and don't really think of yourselves as much. See, for me, most of my life and a lot of other people's lives have become just that, but no one's willing to admit it, because we live in a me society, and everything's about them. It's just no one wants to look at what anybody else is going through, and everyone else just wants to make a show or make a facade about who they really are, or even how you really are. Makeshift the blame on you for everything that you're going through, and instead of getting involved to help and do anything about it, or to ever want to see that kind of beauty and truth that could ever come into your life truly and fully into fruition. No, I think sometimes people that we think are there in those ways are actually helping us to not be clear, to not be fair, to not be ourselves, and to just stay real low in that low spirit. I believe we are going to be that kind of thing today if we aren't all called to be living that kind of life that we could otherwise be living. Because otherwise I just don't think we're living as beautifully as we were designed to live. But as I've wrote before, I just didn't even think that there could be a truly way to get there. Well, so what I started working on is how can I make it so to where we can get there regardless of all of these players, all of these enemies, all of these covert and narcissistic attacks. You just have to keep knowing that you have a lot more to lose if you aren't willing to try, and if we're not willing to fight for these things in our lives and go against these powers that be, no matter where they're coming from. We're not gonna be allowing for much into our country besides for more murder, more brutality, and the performance of these acts with these sect police powers, and it's called police brutality and coercion. They're manipulating you folks. I'm sorry to say it, but they've been manipulating you all along into this already ground war that's already been staged up in this country. And it's into a real way that people are blind to see the truth. And if you aren't so much as willing to look at evil for what it is, you're gonna be acting as easy, soft targets to be extracted from society, and that's just sad. I'm talking about a cold-blooded war we're already in this country. I'm talking about the spiritual warfare that I've been faced up with, or for allowing these kinds of attacks to keep happening to a person like me, and not having anybody on our side. I'm not even talking about a spiritual or mental war. We're already at that physical war. That's what I'm talking about. If you already look at the truth, physical truth of what war is being conducted upon this country and to the rest of the world, war has and always was here and now. It's in a battlefield much like any other though. Here are the numbers, and you can act like these numbers don't lie all you wish. But think of this as an actual war for once. Think of what you're actually looking out into the real world as an actual war for once, because it is for some of us. And if it allows, and if you can allow yourself to think that you can allow for one person to be in duress in that way, and you are not in duress, you're not understanding the bigger picture here. But I'm going to give you the truth, because they're not giving you any kind of truth on that mainstream news. Over 10,000 Americans have now been summarily executed without trial on the streets of America since the massive 9/11 false flag ritual by the standing Army invasion force known as your American police. And I put the double quotes around the American because they're nothing of the kind of people to be going about and doing these things all because people are upset and are after truth. People should have the right to fight for truth and to be on the side of truth without being executed. But these people are trash, and the un-American order-following vermin, I will say, willing to face their own sentences in graves in the future, or however you want to look at it, but thousands and countless of lives have gone to zero trial. That's called public executions that are being taken place in this country, and no one really bats an eye. But we as Americans don't call it for what it outrightly is, and the people who condone it are complicit with the behavior, and that's who live among us. Dirty, rotten Tories who would have supported the British Crown and their henchmen during the American Revolutionary Era period. They are no different than these Tories. This is the standing army force the Founding Fathers warned us about as a standing army that was repeatedly told to the public by the Founding Fathers and the American revolutionaries that if you let a standing army rise up against you and be all around you, that you will have tyranny. And that is exactly what we've allowed to take place in this country, is that standing army. And this is who they are now. This is a foreign invasion of what of a force was supposed to be enacted to protect us. This is the standing army force that the Founding Fathers warned us about, as a standing army that was repeatedly told to the public by the Founding Fathers in the American revolutionaries that if you let a standing army rise up against you and be all around you, that you will have tyranny. And that's exactly what we've allowed to happen in this country, is be inflicted to this standing army. And this is exactly who they are now. This isn't our original police, what they're meant to be here for. Rather, it's grown up to become a monster, a foreign invasion of a standing army force that stands up against exactly what it was supposed to protect us from, the tyranny that we see. That is exactly what the four Founding Fathers warned us about in all of their writings. They said that it would be a standing army that you are going to have to prevent from rising up in this country, and you're going to have to do it by all creating a well-regulated militia, which has been discussed about many times before. And it's something that people truly need to understand and grasp in these times, with all of these ritual killings taking place all over this country. Yes, my friends, we are already at war. For if you love wealth greater than liberty in this country, the tranquility of servitude greater than the animated contest is for freedom, then go home. Go home and get away from us and go rest in your peace. For we seek not your counsel. We don't need your arms. Crouch down and lick the boots that feed you, because that's what you are. You're boot lickers. You're allowing for these killings to happen, and instead of rising up and being a syndicate to help us stop these things, you're just gonna sit there and allow them to happen. So may your chains set lightly upon you as you rest, and may posterity forget that you're ever our countrymen, because we're out here having some real problems with the ways that we're being treated, and that's meant for us for many years, obviously, coming to find out that's how it feels. And you're not gonna tell me that a motherfucker that's hacking the person in that way isn't absolutely in that design to not only win that person's life over, but doing it in absolution in such a way that's just, who does that? Like, who does that? Ultimately, before getting into the next major section of duress, and what the duress has been, and what it means, and where it's been in other people's lives, so people can understand the concept of what duress is, I just beg that you keep an open mind to the fact that my life in and of itself has been pushed in so many different directions by this man that nobody, and by these people, I should say, who work in this way, work for evil. It's all complicit evil. It's all being complicit to the immorality of the department of the very, very commercialized and operational, strategic, whatever, Operation 86 Christians. You know, whatever you want to call it, but it's not a good thing that we're allowing for a standing army to come up against that kind of thing and to not allow us to even press back and be able to have our ministries or have our things being set up out here in rebuttal to that, to where we can use our tongues and use our minds and use our voices to create the lanes that we need to be creating in order to offer for those changes to be met with grace and peaceful mechanisms to be built, to be able to be taken upon in these areas of our lives. And it's real talk. I mean, I don't think that is anything less than formidable by looking outwardly into the world at what we have going on today and looking at the problem to create a better solution than the solution that they're creating through already having created a problem to begin with. Do you see what I'm saying? Because what they're trying to do is create that problem, then offer the solution, and then your rights are being stripped by their solution. You see what I'm saying? We don't want our rights and our reason to be stripped away from us any further, and so we want to create those avenues of change to where that doesn't occur.